Why hello everyone and welcome to my channel. It's your one and only D-WIZZLE, and here on my channel, mi casa es su casa. Okay, that was really corny. But anyway, today I'm hitting you with another movie review, and today we're going to be talking about Pacific Rim Uprising. Now, this is the sequel to the original film in 2013, directed by Guillermo del Toro. But this time it's not directed by Guillermo del Toro. It is directed by Stephen S. the Knight, and it stars John Boyega, Scott Eastwood, Kaylee Spaney, Bern Gorman, Charlie Day, Tian Jing. I hope I don't botch these names too much. Jin Zhang, Adria Arjona, and Rinko Kikuchi. Okay, yeah. So yes, this is the sequel to the original film. I really enjoyed the first Pacific Rim. I thought it was a very entertaining time. What more could you ask for with these type of movies? Giant robots fighting giant monsters. That's pretty much what I came for. There was only like a handful of characters from the first film that I really got invested in, like Idris Elba and Charlie Hunnam and Rinko Kikuchi from the first movie. And yeah, the story wasn't fantastic. It was very straightforward. It kind of dumb in places, but the movie knew what it wanted to be. It was pretty much a straightforward action film with giant robots fighting giant monsters. It delivered on that aspect, and for that I thought it was very good. And also considering the fact that Guillermo was directing it, he really brought his sense of style to the film. It really helped to elevate the material. So with this one, Pacific Rim Uprising, I was excited they were going to make a sequel in the first place, because Warner Brothers for a long time, when they had the rights to Pacific Rim, they didn't know if they were going to make a sequel, because it didn't do very well at the box office. It didn't bomb, but it didn't make the money that they wanted it to. So thank goodness that Universal came in and acquired the rights to it and traded it for King Kong, so Warner Bros. Can use King Kong for Godzilla and their MonsterVerse. And then Warner Bros. Was like, and then and then Universal was like, yeah, we'll make a sequel to it, and we're gonna get John Boyega to be the main lead. He plays the son of Idris Elba. I thought that was a really good choice. I'm a big fan of John Boyega. I enjoyed his stuff in the Star Wars films, and his more recent film, Detroit. I thought he was really good in that. So I think he's a good choice to help helm this franchise. So since this movie came out a few weeks ago, I'm going to get into spoilers. So if you haven't seen Pacific Rim Uprising, I do suggest you guys go see it and then come back here if you don't want any details ruined for you. If you don't care, then by all means continue to watch. But yeah, I'm going to get into the nitty gritty with this film. So this movie takes place, I'm guessing, quite a few years after the first movie. Not too much, but it's enough for, I guess, his son to be a grown man, I guess. So in this period, I guess there's leftover debris from all the destruction from the first film, from the robots that were destroyed and all the kaiju that were killed, and you see some people trying to take the parts of the Jaegers and sell them for parts, I guess. Then you have John Boyega's character, who feels like he's living under the shadow of his father. Doesn't want to become a Jaeger pilot, but in the back of his mind, he was always interested in doing it. But like I said, he doesn't want to follow under the footsteps of his dad. He wants to carve his own path, and he gets into a run-in with the law with Kaylee Spaney's character of Amara. Yeah. And she's this young teenager who's able to create a small Jaeger of her own, and they get into a squabble with Jaeger of the law, and they try to outrun them, but it doesn't work, and they get arrested for it. But then John Boyega's character Jake gets recruited by Rinko Kikuchi. Sorry guys, I don't remember his name. Rinko Kikuchi's character from the first movie, Meiko. She gets recruited from her to have Jake train these new cadets to become Jaeger pilots, and then Amara becomes a cadet also, and so Jake ends up training them all with Scott Eastwood because he's like a lieutenant there, and apparently like an old friend or teammate of Jake. And so pretty much that's like the main synopsis of the movie. But what did I think about Pacific Rim Uprising? How does it stack up to the first film? Well, it's not awful, but it's not very good either. It just felt so over the top and surprisingly dumber than the first movie. Because the main issue with this movie is they try to make the story more complicated than it needed to be. One of the strengths of the first movie was that the story wasn't that complicated. It was very straightforward. It got from point A to point B rather quickly for the most part. But with this film, it feels like it needs to up the stakes more by creating this complicated plot that doesn't really make sense, and it's actually kind of dumb and ridiculous. And it really weighed down the film for me. And also considering the fact that John Boyega, he's a good actor, and he actually was pretty good in this movie. I did like his character Jake, very charismatic and lovable. But the problem with that is that the movie spent so much time on him. It didn't spend enough time with the cadets, developing them as characters, because you do grow attached to the cadets, especially Amara. I thought Amara was really good, but the movie doesn't spend too much time on them for us to be as invested, because it feels like the John Boyega show for the most part, and Scott Eastwood to an extent, because they both have their banter here and there, but yeah, that was just a letdown for me. And so the overall conflict of the film, though, that's where it starts getting really ridiculous. So Charlie Day from the first movie somehow got this, I don't know, a piece of a Jaeger's brain or something like that, and he somehow was able to keep the brain in his house in like a tube, something to keep it alive. I don't know how he got that in his house. Didn't he have to go through regulation to do that? Did anybody notice that he did that? It's just gaping plot hole there. But on top of that, he keeps this brain and he mind melds with it. Now that's a huge problem there, because in the first film, Charlie Day establishes that when he was mind melding with the kaiju in the first film, it almost killed him, and so he's convinced not to do it again. But in this movie, not only does he do it again, but he does it numerous times, and he has like a freaking like tube of a kaiju head like just laying around in his house, and he mind melds with it all the time, and he does it so much to the point where where the brain is controlling his mind. And so Charlie Day's character pretty much helps the kaiju brain to help other kaiju brains, I guess, and puts it in other Jaegers, and those kaiju controlled Jaegers are, destroy the city. And that was the gleaming mystery when I saw the trailer, that there were Jaegers fighting Jaegers. I was thinking it was some sort of political, storyline where there's other, regions or countries fighting for supremacy for the Jaeger programs. I think that would have been a much more interesting storyline than what they did here, because that was the mystery. Who are these Jaegers fighting these other Jaegers? Why are they causing destruction? It's like, is there another country trying to take over? No, it's Jaeger brains that are controlling it's kaiju brains controlling the Jaegers. What sense does that make? How are the brains able to control the technology like that? It doesn't make sense. But not only that, these kaiju controlled Jaegers, they morph into super kaiju, Jaegers, with spikes and everything and neon and all that stuff. And so these Jaegers, their main plan is to create a portal with those Jaegers, to open a portal in another dimension where all the kaiju were coming out of. And they released 3 other kaiju monsters, and then they all go to this one destination on the earth where a volcano is. And so the main plan with that was they're trying to destroy this volcano, and that will create a giant killer mist that spreads across the globe, and that will kill all of humanity on Earth. And apparently that was the mission of the kaiju from the first film. That was their intention in the first film, which doesn't really line up, because if you watch the original film, pretty much the kaiju were there to just wreak havoc. Destroy cities, whatever was in their path. It didn't imply that their plan was to destroy this volcano to create a toxic gas. Why does the movie have to go out in its way to do that to destroy humanity, when it makes more logical sense for them to do what they were already doing in the first film? That's what I'm saying. The movie was trying to create more conflict than it needed to, and it got in the way. It was just a mess, and there was no reason for Charlie Day to do the stuff that he was doing. It was just there to create conflict out of nowhere, and there could have been 7 other ways for them to do it. As far as the action is concerned, it's entertaining. It's entertaining fights. The robot fights are still, cool to watch. It's a nice third act where 3 of the Jaegers were fighting 3 of the monsters, and then all 3 of the monsters morph into one giant kaiju, which I thought was cool. But the problem was, there's two things. One, those Jaeger, the only people that were able to stop the kaiju were the cadets, which I don't buy at all. Now, like I said, I wanted to get more into the cadets' characters, but at the same time, how are they the only ones that were able to stop the kaiju attack? Like, you didn't have any, people that were already trained to pilot the Jaegers. You just had to, just had the cadets do it. Teenagers, to young adults. Those are the only people that you have to fight them. They don't establish, where are the other highly trained, Jaeger pilots? There were none, from what I remember. They don't really establish that. And they don't even establish if they died in, one of the attacks before the final act. It's just, that didn't make any sense. They just had the cadets there because they want to appeal to the teenagers and the young adults, which it's fine, but it has to make sense on a logical standpoint, and that didn't happen. Number 2, I feel like the weight of the fights was lowered because of how swiftly the Jaegers were fighting. In the first film, This is this is kind of a, this is something I thought that I would be more okay with, because the first movie I thought they were moving a bit too slow when it came to the robots fighting. But I'm watching this, and it actually, that kind of helps to feel the impact and the weight of the fights, because they're going so slow. You feel how massive, the robots are. How much it takes for them to control these robots. But with this movie, they move so fast and they move so swift that you don't feel a sense of weight. You don't feel like these are giant robots fighting. It almost feels like a Transformers movie. And I didn't think I would even say that. It's literally this close to feeling like a Transformers film. And it's just, that was kind of disappointing to me, because you have these Jaegers doing flips and like doing these ninja moves. I'm like, I mean, sure, it's cool in concept, but how are the pilots even able to do that? How does that affect them? Do they get like, motion sickness from all this stuff? It just, the physics of it just didn't line up with the first film. And I get, this is, further into the future, so they make upgrades, but just for me, just the weight of the Jaegers and the robots fighting was kind of diminished a bit. I did appreciate the homages to other anime with giant robots like Gundam. That was cool to see. But, even that didn't really save the movie that much for me. It's like, the difference between, stuff like Gundam and then this is that Gundam, you felt the weight of the situation and you felt the stakes. But with this movie, you're taken out so many times because of how ridiculous the plot is. And it's like I said, you don't feel the intensity of the fights happening. And also you have to suspend your disbelief because there's a bunch of teenagers fighting. Of course, it led to a really entertaining fight scene with 4 Jaegers fighting against one giant kaiju. But overall, it just feels like all style and no substance. And then the movie shamelessly plugs in another sequel at the end where they're saying that they're gonna take the fight to them. They're gonna go to their dimension with Jaegers and fight the kaiju, which I don't know how much sense that's gonna make. I don't know how are they gonna do that. And then Charlie Day's gonna be the villain in that. It just doesn't make sense. They're just shamelessly plugging in franchises when they don't even know what they're gonna do in the next 5 years. They're just shamelessly plugging in this Independence Day resurgence all over again. So overall, I was quite a bit disappointed with this film. I won't say that I won't see Pacific Rim 3 if they make one. I know it's not doing very well right now in the US, but I'm sure it's going to do very well overseas. But if they do make a sequel, I am still interested to see it, because I am still interested in the world overall, even though it's started to get dumber. Where the first film felt like live action anime, this one feels like a live action Saturday morning cartoon, and I wish it did more. So overall, I have to give Pacific Rim Uprising a C-. Yeah, this was a letdown, guys. It really was. So once again, thank you guys for watching. If you like the video, make sure you leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe to my channel if you want to be updated on future videos I'm going to do. Some announcements. So next month I am going to do podcast reviews for all the Marvel phases since Infinity War is coming out in April. I'm going to have podcasts for Phase 1, Phase 2, and Phase 3, so look out for those. And then April 7th and April 8th, it's WrestleMania weekend, so I'd like to cover NXT TakeOver New Orleans and WrestleMania 34. Still unsure if I want to do a live stream for those or if I'm just going to review the shows. But yeah, so be on the lookout for those. I'm gonna have more movie reviews coming soon. So yeah, that's pretty much the gist right now. So thank you guys for watching again, and I will see you guys in the next video. Talk to you later.